I'm so disappointed with some, not all, some of white Christian pastors or white Christians, period. And I'm disappointed at their response to a lot of the protesting, the racism, some of the things that have been in the dark but are now being called to the light. And I want to do this video, let me just put this disclaimer out here. Like, I've had conversations with people on my own. I've listened to multiple white Christian pastors, sort of attempt to talk about these things. But I've also had conversation with my black friends who too have talked to their white Christian friends and have had similar responses and experiences. So, my goal is never to hurt anybody, but it's always to teach and hopefully present a perspective that you can then take and build on, and it maybe will help you get some traction to create, a different kind of change in your life. So here it is. The perspective that I've seen some white pastors, white churches, white Christians take is one that racism, the things that we're seeing come out in the news, black and white people basically being at odds with each other, is symptomatic of something that has been referred to as a bigger spiritual issue. So it's almost like, don't pay attention to what's going on here. Let's fix our mind on Jesus and let's ignore what's happening and basically just focus on there's this spiritual issue that's happening. It's symptomatic of that. And really, this is just a cover up from some greater deception or some greater thing that the enemy is trying to do to God's people. Now, here's the problem that I have with that. Number one, I think everything is spiritual, right? We are spirit beings and we live in a world that is imperfect, is broken and flawed. So whenever you see some sort of destruction or calamity, I do think that is a result of a spiritual issue. Even the good things that we see, right? Like, I totally believe that whatever we see on the outside of ourselves is just a result of what's happening internally. So if we see racism and abuse, discrimination, so on and so forth, I think it's very much symptomatic of the spirit condition of man. However, we think about this a little bit more. The problem I have with this approach is that when you just look at something from a spiritual perspective, you don't allow yourself to connect with people on a real deep and personal level. And then what that does is you put everything on Jesus, you put everything on God, you put everything on the Bible and what God is going to do, right? So that totally absolves you of feeling anything, of searching your heart and figuring out what is it that you need to do, what kind of changes do you need to do in your heart, so then you can go back and make changes at your job, in your family, in your community. And especially if you are a pastor, you can go then and teach your congregants how to love like Jesus loved. And that's the thing that I'm seeing. Like, I'm not seeing anybody really talk about this from a perspective of caring about the rights and the pain of humans, Black people. Let me just say that. Everybody that I've seen rather, just really seems to approach it from the spiritual. Oh, I'm standing with you, brother. I'm standing with you, sister. And God's going to make this okay. Listen, God has done everything that he is going to do, right? It is on us now to be able to do the work in the earth that needs to be done, right? And so as white people, it is on you to, yes, pray, yes, seek God, yes, walk with trusted people who can help you rethink some of the things that you may think about Black people. Talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, get in community with people who hopefully are Black and can help you work through some of these things if they choose to. If not, that's okay too. But what you have to do is feel this. This is not God's problem to deal with. Like, this was created in the earth. And yes, it is a spiritual issue, but we can't ignore the fact that people are hurting, people are dying, people are not being able to progress and just live just for sake of saying that it's a spiritual problem. So yeah, it has a spiritual root. Everything does. But what are we going to do with the people who are in pain, people who are dying, and people that are just trying to live now and just can't do that? What do we do? So do we throw up our hands because this is an issue that God hasn't dealt with? Or do we sit back and actually think about what Jesus did? Jesus would be so heartbroken by the things that have happened to Black people in this country, in this nation. So I just don't really understand how we can all say we're Christians. We all claim to read the same Bible. We all jump up and down about the same scriptures. You know, we go to the same churches even. But how we can do all that and say that we love the same God, but not have the same care and concern for all of God's children just blows my mind. It blows my mind. So this is kind of just me off the cuff. This is not edited. I just needed to really get this out. And I just pray that, man, the church wakes up